And we are back on Professional Wrestling, the podcast. I'm a bro, not a pro, but I'll tell you who is a pro. And back by popular demand, the internet cannot get enough of this guy, professional wrestler Mason Rush. Mason, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, you are my favorite and only wrestling client.
For now, I see what you do online with Bruiser. I see what you're doing, but I like it because we need more people in our faction.
And it really is all about factions.
Handsome bearded men.
Handsome bearded men. I like that. Now, it is all about factions at the end of the day in the world of professional wrestling. You know, as we're taping today, you know, the Judgment Day is absolutely in their peak.
Just terrorizing.
Because they are just dripping in gold. Everybody's got a belt. You know, I love to bring it up, but for a guy that I absolutely could not stand at the beginning, Dom Mysterio, my absolute boy, got that belt, North American champion there, and you know he helped his boys Priest and Baylor get the tag team belts. He's the glue that holds the Judgment Day together, really.
Yeah, it's the power of excellent production from weak, sad, Ray's son, kind of lackey to Dirty Dom. It's a complete 180 in character and gimmick, and it works. And does it well.
But you know, Mason, at the end of the day, you know, you remember when you had your professional debut on Hamilton Wrestling, right?
Like it was yesterday.
I remember sitting in the crowd, same thing like yesterday, and I'm sitting there and I'm right by the ramp.
Get me excited talking about it.
And we're thinking in our heads, for sure, you and I talked about this before, you're going to come out, going to be a heel for sure, people are going to hate you, they're going to be jealous. And what ended up happening again?
They love me.
They absolutely loved you.
Yeah, what we practiced for a long time and what we thought was going to happen did not happen. And the crowd decided what I was in that moment.
And that's where the crowd ultimately decides, you know, you can have this all pre-planned. You can have your Hollywood writers because, you know, in wrestling, they went at one point in WWE, no more just wrestling writers. The old wrestlers used to do this. They actually brought in real Hollywood writers to write their scripts and everything else. You can think what's going to happen with this character development. The audience will tell you at the end of the day.
100%.
I can tell you, I take a lot of satisfaction in calling Dom, saying Dom is going to be a star. Felt really good about that. But for every Dom Mysterio, I'm sitting here with a Karrion Kross.
Yeah, you didn't really get that one, did you?
It's not over yet. he has the girl.
Still a chance.
He's got the vignettes.
Yep.
He's got the TikTok. He comes out to the black and white montage. You know, his wife, you know, lip syncing, and he comes in. Rawr,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's all there.
You know what I was told? If you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. So when it comes to Karrion Kross, I got no comment.
So now I got to ask you, Mason, like, let's cut to the chase here. In today's episode, you know, we as wrestling fans can think one thing, but you're out there training every week. You're doing this thing. When you're seeing it very differently than the layman wrestling fan. There's two people that stick out in my mind. I'm going to go one by one with them.
Yep.
The first one I'm going to hit upon is a guy that, while I respect him and I like watching him, to me, he was a joke at best, and that was Chad Gable, okay? Alpha Academy. Thank you.
Shoosh. Yep.
Please.
Yep. Listen.
They were going to break them up with Otis because I was loving the whole Otis thing. I was ready for Otis to go with the male models. Yep. Somehow, it went from my dream of Otis with the male models to now all of a sudden Chad Gable is leading Alpha Academy with Maxine. You know, Mansoor and whatever his name is have not been...
Masse and Mansoor.
They've not been cosmetically cleared to wrestle.
No.
But this two jokey factions have now become a serious thing, and Chad Gable gave Gunther all he could ask for and more in almost taking the Intercontinental belt.
Yeah.
I did not see this coming in the slightest. You did the whole time. Chad Gable, how did you know he was going to be a star?
Well, I mean, there's a few things you look at, right? It's you see kind of the way the WWE is going, which I kind of mentioned on our last podcast, which is less massive freaks of nature that don't look like anyone you or I know, to more normal looking people, more athletic looking people who can do things that are eye catching, that are entertaining. One of which is Chad Gable, right? When you combine talent, athleticism, physique, and work ethic with an amazing gimmick, you get Chad Gable, right? You get a guy who leads a faction. He learned from one of the greatest of all time, Kurt Angle. They're almost identical. They're very similar characters with a different spin on it. But Chad Gable combines all the things that you would need to be a pro wrestler, on top of the fact that to an actual wrestling fan, he's an excellent technician of the sport. You watch him wrestle, his shines are amazing, right? His moves are amazing. He's a high flyer, puts his body on the line every night. And on top of all of that, you want to appeal to as many people, as wide of a market as you can. Chad Gable appeals to kids, he appeals to men, he appeals to everybody in between. Women, he's a very likable character and an amazing face for the WWE.
But for the longest time, Mason, I mean, he was going out there and jobbing for everybody. You know, he was jobbing as a singles guy,
Yep.
jobbing as a tag team. Otis,
Yep.
you know, is still pretty much a comedy wrestler at best. But Chad, you know, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see the potential of it even.
If you look at the
Yeah.
history of WWE, the way that they bring them in, whether it's through NXT, whether it's through another indie wrestling company, whatever it is, they bring them in, and you can see kind of the trajectory that they have them on, right? Chad Gable is one of the better guys that is around in terms of locker room, in terms of presence, right? His gimmick is really good. He appeals to really everybody that you would want to watch your product.
Let me ask you point blank then, because you know there's a lot of politics. If we're gonna talk about wrestling, there's always about politics, right? You're gonna talk about the days of Triple H before he became the boss, right? And him and Shawn Michaels, DX, they knew how to pull themselves in and get the opportunities they wanted. You could be the most talented wrestler on the planet. You could have the look, everything else, but you need some luck with it, and you need somebody pulling for you.
Yep.
In some cases, you know, with Chad Gable, my sources were telling me that probably you heard the same thing. Cody Rhodes coming in, and Cody Rhodes pulling for Chad, saying, "Hey, this guy is freaking awesome. This guy needs to wrestle with me."
Yep.
All you need sometimes is one person to put the one word in, and it makes a big difference. Do
Yeah.
you think that's fact or fiction?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolute fact. I've read from people in the industry that if you do a great job at jobbing or you know taking bumps for Vince McMahon, for WWE, for the company, they're gonna reward you at some point, right? So when I see a guy that should not be taking those kinds of bumps, should not be losing match after match every single week, you know there's a reason. You know that ultimately that guy's going to come and pay his dues and get the results because of that. And again, Chad Gable is the perfect example of that. Paid his dues, and now he's got his kids, his wife, his whole family sitting front row at every show. He puts on a performance. He goes, kiss the wife, kiss the kids, goes in. He's a fan favorite. He's the ultimate face, right? Other than, I guess, John Cena, who also was there on Monday night. We just couldn't see him.
Watching Chad Gable's daughter cry as he lost to
Yeah.
Gunther, that
Yep.
and actual tears flowing,
Which
amazing.
Which actually answers
Amazing.
the question of, do you think they know beforehand what's going to happen? The answer is 100% no, right? Chad Gable is kayfabe from beginning to end, right?
Yeah.
There's no chance they know, and as they shouldn't, right? It's all about the entertainment, and the fact that they're so invested in their father's match just shows you how important it really is and how much he cares about it, which
But-
then translates to the fans.
and it's worked because at the end of the day, the fans love him, and I
And
would
he
say
loves the fans.
they gave him an opportunity. You know, I believe it was the Cody Rhodes match, if I'm not mistaken, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, he's getting a bit of a pop here. People are enjoying
Yeah.
it. That's all you need." How many times have they brought out people with a great gimmick and great vignettes, and it just went flat? And you know, they bring up, you know, back in the day with the WCW and Buff Bagwell and Booker T coming out, and it was one of the flattest matches ever. They expected so much out of
Yeah.
it, and they didn't put on a bad show. But it depends on which audience you have that day, what city you're in.
Yeah.
Do they like the gimmick? You know, sometimes you just need stuff to hit. It clearly, I say with Gable.
Yeah, and that's you gotta look at who you want to attract and then market to those people like any business. It's a business, right? Which is why, again, off topic, but I think Austin Theory is failing is because if you follow the guy on Instagram, you follow his social media, you see kind of his out of the ring personality, you're marketing to boys, men, you're marketing to guys who like you as a fan.
Yes.
But when all you're posting is like selfies in the gym, flexing pictures, shirts off, you're not posting for the audience you're trying to attract. So the guys that you want to like you just think you're kind of a cocky guy, but in a bad way in real life, right? Your character is your character, that's your gimmick. But when you're in the locker room, when you're outside of the ring, when you're in the gym, when you're meeting people, you almost have to be a little bit more humble than that if you want to attract the fans you want to attract.
And that's where
That's
it's
what I
so
do.
hard in the world of wrestling to understand what's kayfabe, what's a work, what's real, what's not. Now, as your manager, as your friend, I respect your opinion greatly in our sport here. And Chad Gable was one when I designed today's program and I had the two people together is because I know I'm gonna applaud you. Like you called these when nobody was calling it. I remember we're talking about the big Mountain Dew match, right? And we're
Yeah.
talking Bray Wyatt just passing away recently. I was waiting for Bray to come back. I was all excited about the Bray match. I told you LA Knight ain't going to go nowhere. That match was one of the biggest duds ever. Uncle Howdy falling off and dying, or what happened with him, and through the whatever they set up there, that
Yeah,
platform.
the platforms, the
And
mats.
you kept telling me throughout LA Knight's gonna be a star. You watch. Remember also Maxim Models. He was the head of Maxim Models, right? Mr. Dupree.
Yep.
And here he is today. I didn't see it coming. I was sure the Mountain Dew Black match was gonna bury him forever. Yet for some reason, the crowd got into it. You were the only guy calling for this. How did you know LA Knight was gonna be big before anybody else did?
Authenticity. He's the everyman, just a little bit more muscular. He's the guy who pays the dues, takes odd jobs, acts, commercials, whatever he was able to do to keep living his dream. I personally think that along the way, people wanted to see him fail. You could see it now, right? Nobody really likes him, and the ones who do, he's got to earn every single fan because he's coming in, right? He's too old, he's washed up, but he's not, right? And what I saw was him coming in, giving it his all every night. I remember when he walked into the ring the first couple nights and he did his catchphrases. He tried so hard. No one knew what he was doing. Nobody was following along with him. But I knew this was going to take. I think he had the charisma, he had the authenticity. Everything I just said about Chad Gable applies directly to LA Knight as well. And you can't, no matter how much you want a guy to job, you want a guy to be a mid-carder, just like when I walked out and I was going from heel to face, you can't tell the fans what to think. They love authenticity. They love when somebody's organically great at what they do. And again, he's the ultimately the picture of what I was trying to explain with you have to take a little bit of the old wrestling, the Attitude Era, with the new era, which is I guess the PG whatever era you want to call it, and find a character that appeals to everyone. So LA Knight, I mean, appeals to a guy like me who love the Attitude Era, loves old wrestling, and I like new wrestling. I talked to somebody the other day who does not like the production of WWE. He loves the AEW indie style. He
They're
likes
out there.
the
They're out
he
there.
likes the blood. He likes the that stuff. Whereas the reason I love a Chad Gable LA Knight is because it's a lot more about the entertainment. I love watching it. I look forward to the feuds, to the production, and I think that of the next wave of superstars, your Megastar and Alpha Academy are going to be up there in the next year or so.
Listen, I could picture myself walking to Home Depot and seeing Chad Gable being the warehouse manager. I could see
Yeah.
LA Knight being the store manager. Like, they are good physiques, but they still seem like relatively real guys. With LA Knight, though, we're sitting here now in the fall going into the winter. And as I told the story before, I was at Detroit SummerSlam. I'm outside the arena because I'm lined up early because we're going to go to the buffet, and so you're there. And the whole time outside, literally every 5 minutes, somebody started the yeah, and everybody was doing it the whole time in the arena. This is not a coincidence. People have taken to this guy. Now, a guy who has brought it together, you think that this guy's a jerk and you think this guy is going to destroy people's careers, but The Miz. The Miz is a guy, The Miz When The Miz does you, you know you're going to the
Yeah.
moon.
Yep.
It was a Monday night, Mason. I'm getting my food ready, meal prep. You know, I'm all about that, like you know. And I do it in between commercials. And then all of a sudden, I hear LA Knight's music blast. I'm watching LA Knight come out. And I'm like, oh, LA Knight got a haircut. Oh, he actually looks better now. But they're booing him. Why? They hate the haircut? And I'm like, oh, no, that's The Miz.
Yep.
And The Miz put on a promo.
Put on a clinic and how to cosplay a promo. That was very well done. Again, I've had people argue with me and say it was terrible and they hate it and it ruins wrestling. But I can argue all day against that too.
The way he described that really all that LA Knight is a knockoff Rock, Stone Cold. What? I mean, hell. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, what? I mean, yeah. That was classic. But, you know, it really drew my attention. This guy is Stone Cold.
Yeah.
This guy is The Rock.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I love it.
They pay attention to social media, comment. They have people whose full-time job is to read threads and read comments from people online. So they'll take all of that and they'll throw it right back at you. And that's what the Miz gimmick was. It was everything people say about this guy, let's get it all off our chest, say it. And when he becomes a star, right, like you're not going to remember.
I remember Hell in a Cell, and they were having the press conference afterwards, which, by the way, WWE is taken from UFC, but we won't get into that. Yeah. And Triple H is talking, and I'm like, oh, no. Triple H does actually read Reddit. He does actually see all the fans' comments. He does know what we want. We think they're so oblivious. Yep. They ain't.
But if you look at the trend of LA Knight, what did he do for the last 3-4 months? He jobbed. He lost every match. Every time you thought he was going to win, he didn't. Right?
He was Max Dupree.
That's it. They brought him in as a joke, and he proved them wrong. That happens more often than not.
So he goes and puts on a leather vest and says, yeah. Isn't he really the modern-day Stone Cold?
Yeah. Stone Cold, The Rock, Razor Ramon. Combine the three of those.
And you know what? Those are tried, tested, and true products.
Right, but he wouldn't be the first guy to take different things that work from other wrestlers, package them together in a little bit of a different way, and succeed. That's the business. That's what it is.
So knowing that, and knowing that Macho Man Randy Savage was really Gorgeous George from the 60s.
Well, look at Macho Man Randy Savage and watch Seth Rollins every Monday night, and you tell me that there's no inspiration there.
But I'm saying you go watch wrestlers from the 60s, 70s, and you watch Ric Flair, you watch Gorgeous George. That's Macho Man, really. He stole everything from them. And you know what? As wrestling fans, as long as it's cool to us, I don't think it works. Care.
And as long as it sells their merchandise, that's all that matters.
So now, knowing this, let's look ahead as we finish off today's episode. If you got to predict, where do you see the immediate? Now, we don't know what's going to happen in 5-10 years because anything can happen backstage and change in a moment's notice. But in the foreseeable future of LA Knight, future of Chad Gable, do you see gold in either of their futures?
I don't know if I see a heavyweight WWE Championship, Universal Championship for either of them. I could see LA Knight taking the Intercontinental from Gunta. I could see that happening. And I could see Gable and Otis taking a tag title. It's kind of wide open, right? Like you had Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens hold it for a while. They just lost it. I don't see it staying for a while. Those are titles that change, and then they keep the heavyweight Universal on Roman forever. But I do see there's a definite chance that Alpha Academy could take tag, and LA Knight could probably go and challenge Gunther for that Intercontinental Championship.
And for me, I could see both getting gold as well. LA Knight, I could see U.S. title as well.
Yeah.
That could be the flavor, And eventually, if out of the two, if I'm a betting man in Vegas, I'm going to tell you LA Knight one day will win heavyweight gold. He may be a transitional champion.
Could be.
But if he goes on the trajectory he's on now, he's your face. I think he's more face than Cody where he's at because of the pop he gets.
Would you say he takes it from Roman? Or would you say that someone has to take it from Roman? And because I personally don't see LA Knight. They would have to spend so much time to building a feud for that because it makes no sense.
I got a couple people now that I'm thinking about Roman, but I think we're going to save that for next week, if that's all right with you.
Sounds good to me.
Folks, this is Mason Rush. Catch
You're
me
welcome.
Mason Rush 33 on Instagram. This is your future champion of the planet in wrestling. I'm the chosen lawyer, the manager, and we'll be back on Professional Wrestling, the podcast.